If you watched my previous video, I want to give you a little bit more explanation about the template file. So really, the template files are meant to make the collectors generic. So in our case, it wasn't really helpful. We could also hard code everything in our Python file. But usually the collectors are more generic, and they have some template files, sometimes even sub-templates. But I will cover here only the basics. Usually, if you don't indicate in your config file, Harvest will look for the default template, and a few parameters are always expected regardless of your collector. That's the name. That's very simple. It's the name of your collector. Object is basically the description or the type of instances that you're collecting. It can be more or less something that you of your own choice. Poll frequencies is important. First of all, it should only contain the items or the polls that you have defined in your collector. So in our collector, in my previous video, we defined the function poll data. Therefore, I am expected to add a value for data in my poll frequencies, which can be any value that I like. So 10 seconds is nice for testing. It's for production, it's not very useful to use to check every 10 seconds. But anyway, then the last and important thing is export options. In export options, you define some parameters that different exporters will use to create output metrics from the data that is collected by your exporter. So there are two that are important. Labels to emit. This is used by the Prometheus exporter and the InfluxDB exporter. This is to telling these exporters which labels that are available in your instances to include in the output metrics. Because by default, they will only take the instance name in the output metrics. And you can have one more parameters, which is graphite leaves. And this is the list of graphite's metric paths that you want to use. In this case, you use the instance name and the instance labels to create a metric path. To give you a better idea, visual representation of what the different parameters in your template stand for. So the name is the exact name that you defined for your class. The data in poll frequencies matches with the method poll data. So sometimes you will also run instance polls and counter polls, which updates an instance cache and a counter cache. This is something I will explain in future videos. In this case, you don't use the matrix in dynamic mode, but you have a static matrix, which is much more efficient. So if you are going to collect a lot of data, I don't recommend to use the matrix in dynamic mode, but this is something I will cover in future videos. The object is something that, for example, the Prometheus exporter will use together with your counter, the name of the counter that you defined, to create the name of the output metric. It also is the tag or the label of your instance in the metric. Similarly, it's I think in the graphite metric path, it's the first folder name. Then you have the instance name, which is in curly brackets instance name in the graphite leaf. You can use it, and the curly brackets means this is a variable or a label. This is also used by the Prometheus exporter. Finally, you have the labels. Those are labels in Prometheus, and they can be used in the metric path in Graphite. And I think that's all. So finally, I want to say 2 sentences about instance names. So sometimes your instance names are not unique, and I warned you that your instance names have to be unique. Otherwise, it also doesn't make sense if you're not sure where your numerical values belong to. Then there is a lot of confusion. So if you don't if you don't have unique value names, there are two solutions. You can cook an instance name, and this is actually what we did in our example. You can take two variables if you know that they are unique, their combination is unique, and use them. So what we did in my example in this code hunter collector, we used the file path instead of the file name. So we concatenated the directory path and the file name, and we were sure that the instance name was unique. Another more advanced option is if you have a label which is unique, you can tell the matrix to use this label as the instance key. And the way you do it is just add another argument when you initialize the matrix, and make sure that you always add the label to your instance whenever you declare an instance. So that was all. Thank you so much for your attention. Let's keep in touch. Feedback is much appreciated. Let me know if you need help. And in future videos, I will explain you how to make more advanced Harvest collectors. But let me know how it goes with your own collector. What is your first collector, and how did it go? Thank you so much for watching.